Hi, this is Alvin with kickstartcommerce.com, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you quickly how to find out who owns a certain domain name. And so sometimes you may want to know who owns a domain name for the simple fact that you may want to purchase it. Other times you may have a link that is pointing to your site that may be spammy or coming from a low quality website, and you're wanting to know who to contact to have that link removed. And so I typically use three services. One of the first that I'll show you here is Whois.com. So if you wanted to know who owned, let's say, Kickstart Commerce, then you would essentially type that in and click search, and you could already see that it's already registered. And then the good thing about who.is is that it shows you other domain name extensions that are available as well as the ones that are taken. In this instance, Kickstart Commerce obviously is taken by myself. But it also shows you, different information about the domain name, who the registrar is. So this domain name is registered through GoDaddy. You can also see other important information like the date that it expires on. And so sometimes you may want to understand, especially if you're wanting to buy a domain, when it actually is up for renewal or possible expiration. Now, one of the things that typically happens from time to time is let's say you're after a domain and it takes you a couple years. Well, you could actually just keep running the lookup and look for what that date is on the expiration date, and then set a reminder to either come back to it to see if it expires and goes into auction or is deleted. But in short, that's what the expire date pretty much means, is that, hey, this is when it's up for renewal next time. You can also see the creation date or the registration date there. You can also see the name servers for whoever is hosting the website for that domain name, whether it's parked or whether it's a legitimate website. Who.is also shows you similar names that are registered. I typically don't pay any attention to those. Now this is where you get into the good data that you're after, is trying to figure out who to contact. So you have three selections here. You have the registrant contact information, typically the person who's owning the domain name, and then you have an administrative contact, and then you have a technical contact. So you could have someone who owns the name, and they could be defined as the registrant. But then you could have someone who is an administrative contact. So let's say the registrant leases the domain name to an administrative contact. Or you're in a large company, and so you may want a registrant, to be listed, let's say, in the marketing department. But then, as far as an administrative contact, you may want a different person. So, although mine show that all of these are the same contact information, you can have a multitude of reasons of why these three would be different. In most cases, I would probably, if it's a technical issue, contact a technical admin. If it's more so, administrative, misspellings or just something incorrect, I deal with the administrative contact. And then if it's typically the person that you're trying to purchase a domain from, or you're just trying to inquire about the domain name and what that person plans to do, use the registrant. And then when all else fails, use all three. You never know. And so I keep my information public so that people can see and always contact me. They also have services when you register a domain name where you can basically put your Whois, set it to private, and so you won't see any of this information. It'll be the registrar's contact information, and it won't be much to go on. That being said, moving right along, I also use GoDaddy, their Whois, and so just to kind of show you a bit about it. It works pretty much in the same manner that Who.is works. I tend to like Who.is just because I don't have to go through all of this in terms of like verifying that I'm not a robot, and I can continually go back and if I have about 5 or 6 domains, I can stay with who.is and just go repetitively one domain after the next domain. Whereas with GoDaddy, I can either put in another domain, but a lot of times it'll take me somewhere else, um, that I really just don't care to go. That being said, here's GoDaddy's, um, registration information for kickstartcommerce.com. Not as, I guess you'd say, as beautiful as Whodot is, but it does give you somewhat the same information of when it was last updated, what the creation date is, and then what the expiration date is. You can also, because it's GoDaddy, it gives you a abuse contact email, and so there have been many situations to where a company has forgotten to renew their domain name. Their domain name ended up in somebody else's hands. Let's say it was a religious organization, and it ends up taking the religious organization's website and pointing it to like an adult um, website, or it may be a kid's school or a children's school that ends up in somebody's hands and they point it. You can always come back to run a Whois, and if it really is the domain is really being abused, then you can use the registrar abuse contact email and phone. And then once again, like I said, you have the registrant information, the admin information, the tech information, name servers, and so on. And so that's the two that I really like using. And then the third that is popular is also whois.net, not to be confused with who.is. And so it works pretty much the same way as the other two. It'll tell you that it's already registered. It will show you different domains that are out here that are available, or you can purchase premium domain names as they qualify them. It typically shows you the same information. Like I said, not as beautiful as Who.is, in my opinion, but you get the same, more or less the same information there. Probably less information here than the previous two. Now, so that's the simple. I guess you'd say that's the simple method for finding a domain name owner whose contact information is public. But let's ask the question of what happens if you're looking for a domain name and the person is using Whois. Well, I have 3 tools that you may definitely want to look into. The first is Domain IQ, and it probably is the most recommended, and it is a paid for service, and so you will have to pay to use this service. But it can show you actual historical Whois data. So let's say you had 8 owners that have owned this since, let's say it was registered in 1995. Well, it will show you and also tell you, what if there's an email address associated with that domain, which it typically is. It'll show you all the registrants associated email addresses, or rather domain names that are associated with that registrant email. And so it gives you an appraised value, not to really be, it's not exact, so don't treat it as if it is, but Domain IQ can give you pretty comprehensive domain intelligence about that specific domain name that you're after. It can show you the Whois history, and like I said, it's typically a basic service, but it is a paid service. But it's probably one of the best. Next in line, if you don't want to use Domain IQ, you can also use Domain Tools, and it too is a paid for service, and you can see they have many different products here, as well as different solutions. And so, with that, I tend to, if someone uses privacy data, you can come in again, type in that domain name, and then I think their service is like $99 a month, but you get way more detail. And so this is all the registrant informations, and the good thing about it is it shows you the Whois history here. So it shows you that 40 records have been archived since 2007, so September 2007. There have been 14 changes on 10 unique IP addresses over the 13 years. So you can really find out a lot about this domain and who's been using it, how it's been used, um, especially using domain tools. It'll give you just certain things of how many terms, what the SEO score is, and likewise. So you can really see a lot with these tools, but again, they are paid tools. And so if you try to go to that history, it'll tell you, hey, you'll need to sign up. Um, it'll give you the total amount, but it won't necessarily show you. And then here's what I was telling you about. You can do a personal membership, which is $99 a month. You can pay it annually. And then they also have professional um, memberships, and so that you'll definitely just have to contact them to get what that pricing is. And last but not least, finally, Whoisology. I've never used it, but it definitely comes recommended in terms of the three: domain IQ, domain tools, and then finally Whoisology. And as you can see it gives you admin contact and then just other details and what the changes have been. And so, if you have a domain that you're wanting to buy and you're seeing a lot of changes, or you just really want to know the history of that domain before you put down some large sum of money to purchase it, then I definitely recommend, if you're unable to get that information using who.is, who.godaddy.com, or whois.net, then I recommend that you use Domain IQ, domaintools.com, and then whoisology.com in those respective orders. And so that's how you go about finding a domain name owner whose information is available, as well as information for that domain name when that contact information is hidden. And so with that being said, if all else fails, you can also go to the ICANN validation. Just Google who is ICANN validation form. And if all else fails and you can't get a hold of an owner, then by all means use that. That's it for this tutorial. I hope this helps you out quite a bit. Let me know if you have questions. Drop a comment down below. And last but not least, feel free to visit us over at kickstartcommerce.com, where I'm sharing with you various search marketing and domain investing ideas. That's it for now. I'll catch you in the next tutorial. Thanks.